Well, hello there, watching the press preview. A first look at what is on the front pages. Time to see then what's making the headlines with the associate editors of the Daily Mirror and the Telegraph, Kevin Maguire and Camilla Tominey. Welcome to both of you. So as ever, let's check out the front pages, shall we? The Financial Times leading with the Health Secretary's warning that England could face a return to coronavirus restrictions if the public don't take steps to stay safe. That is also the lead story for The Guardian, which quotes Sajid Javid as saying MPs should lead by example and wear masks in crowded places. The Telegraph quotes Mr Javid in its headline, "Have your booster jab to keep your freedoms." Same story for the Metro, call to arms. The Eye also featuring those calls to, in order to save Christmas this time, it says, get the booster jab. The Daily Express reports the government striking a deal with two leading pharmaceutical firms to provide antiviral drugs. The Daily Mail says the new antivirals will halve the risk of death from COVID. And the Daily Star has a story about Strictly Come Dancing contestant Tilly Ramsey responding to a radio DJ's comments about her appearance. So Kevin Maguire and Camilla Tominey are here now. So news conference tonight. It's been a long time, hasn't it, certainly? Things are challenging, Kevin, but not challenging enough.
No, 5 weeks, I think, since the last one, and the government's taken its foot off the gas on COVID. It was almost as if Boris Johnson wanted to ignore it, pretended it had gone away so he could focus on good news and do his boosterism. But the Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, as you just said, he repeated his warning that there could be up to 100,000 new infections every day. And while he wouldn't implement Plan B, said that wasn't the plan at the moment, he effectively called on the population to actually follow it in terms of wearing masks in crowded and airless places, be outdoors where you can. So he was asking people to take responsibility rather than taking responsibility himself for enforcing measures. But the stats are grim, and they're creeping up. Combine that with the worries there will be winter flu this year because we're mixing, and one expert said there could be 60,000 deaths from that. Possibly there could be more flu deaths and COVID deaths this winter. But you can see the health secretary is now getting a little bit concerned and possibly close to panicking.
Yes, the Financial Times then, Camilla, act now or expect to return to COVID curbs this winter, with the graph behind them in the photograph there of Jenny Harries and the Health Secretary showing the rise upwards. But as Kevin said, act now in what way? What does he mean by that? Is it just get the booster? Just get a vaccine if you're 12 to 15? Because the rest of it, they've left to us, thereby absolving the government, it seems, of any responsibility.
It's an interesting exercise in devolution, this, isn't it, Anna? This idea that it's for us to act now. Well, I think what the public will be asking, first of all, is why hasn't the booster rollout been more successful? Telegraph reported today that only 27.8% of care home residents and only 14% of staff had their third jab. So again, we're getting more coverage of the fact that this booster rollout has slowed. Second of all, you'll have parents questioning why children weren't vaccinated sooner as they were in Europe. I mean, I've experienced firsthand as a mum of three with 3 children off with COVID at one point or another since October the 5th, that it is ripping through secondary schools. Now, if you're looking at just cases and those case numbers aren't translating into hospitalisations and deaths, then obviously we could get to 100,000 if it doesn't put more pressure on the NHS. But I suppose what health chiefs have been warning today is the double or treble whammy of that, combined with, as Kevin said, flu, and then the seasonal pressures that the NHS faces anyway. I mean, we had Kwasi Kwarteng talking about hoping for a mild winter. But I think from the public's point of view, it's really difficult to put this genie back in the bottle. Kevin and I both were at the Labour Party conference in Brighton, the Tory Party conference in Manchester, mixing with hundreds of people without masks. I mean, and that was by both parties say so. So to now mandate masks ahead of boosters, surely the most effective barrier to a resurgence of COVID is the third jab.
Yeah, well, indeed so. But it's once again putting all your eggs in the vaccine basket, isn't it? The other measures of mask wearing. How do you get people to start re-wearing them? Other parts of the UK never told people to take them off, Kevin. Guardian, Javid warns of 100,000 daily cases, urges MPs to lead by example. Well, they haven't been, have they? Sat on the benches not wearing them for as long as we can remember.
No, that's absolutely right, Anna. And the FT say the Plan B won't be implemented before COP26 at the beginning of next month. Well, that is in Glasgow in Scotland, where you need to wear a mask indoors, I think public transport still, and vaccine passports are required to go into nightclubs and big events. But the Guardian is picking up that he was questioned, Sajid Javid. You're telling the public to wear masks, might be very sensible to do so, but you and ministers, many MPs in the House of Commons, and you look at those pictures on TV, there's no masks in the chamber. Certainly on the Conservative side, you'll see one or two dotted around. There are a lot more people wearing masks on the opposition side, Labour, Lib Dems, SNP, and so on. But amongst the government side, no masks, or very, very few masks. And he conceded that was a problem. So I wonder if next time we see Sajid Javid in the House of Commons, in the chamber, he will be wearing a mask himself, because I think most of us, you follow your leaders, and you also want to know what the law is. So when people are making a choice, should I wear a mask or should I not wear a mask? If you know a mask is required, most people will wear it. Okay, you'll get the anti-vaxxers who are trying to kill satire, as well as people who will refuse to do so, and some people will forget it or be defiant, can't bother. But most people comply with regulations and laws. But if MPs aren't wearing them, I think people are less likely to wear them themselves.
Yes, I mean, he does specifically say as well, especially when you're with people you don't know. So that's public transport, really, isn't it? Where, as we know, many people have stopped wearing masks then as well. Daily Telegraph, have your booster jab to keep your freedoms, these long-won freedoms. And the Eye as well, Camilla, raising the prospect of Christmas. Here we go again, trying to save Christmas.
I know, it's like deja vu, isn't it? Interestingly, we had a Telegraph Live event today where I interviewed Kate Bingham, the former UK government's vaccine czar, and she was talking about the urgency with which the government should be pushing the boosters, but also antivirals. And I know that's on one of the front pages of the other papers. I mean, again, this... I don't know why it always has to come down to Christmas. I mean, we do seem to be facing this sort of perfect storm of turkey shortages, combined with threat of the return of some of these measures, combined with everything else that's going on, a cost of living squeeze, which doesn't bode particularly well for the festive period. Whether it's useful to be speculating this far ahead remains to be seen. But of course, the government's going to come in for a lot of heavy criticism if it looks like it's acting too slowly again. I note that Layla Moran, who's chair of the coronavirus APPG, has been on the airwaves tonight talking about a bit more of a rapid response. But clearly, Javid wants to stall for a while, I think, knowing that it's going to be deeply unpopular. It's interesting to look at the regional picture as well, because I think Kevin mentioned there, you know, mask wearing in Scotland for COP26, which is more vociferous than it is down here. At the moment, it seems that in England, we've got about 1 case per 80. In Wales, they're not doing quite as well. They've got 1 per 45. Scotland's a bit better than us. Northern Ireland's doing very well indeed. So by comparison, so again, are we then going to get back into this other case of deja vu of like the different regions employing different policies, and then there being some bickering between the different leaders over the way ahead? Remember when Sturgeon kept on preempting the government and making decisions ahead of England?
Absolutely, yes. But then you get elements like Morocco, which has banned flights to the UK, and you know the Le Monde, the newspaper in France, is starting to call us Plague Island. And we heard from our economics and data editor in Sky News at 10 suggesting actually that part of it is that we are testing more, and specifically testing younger people with the lateral flow tests in secondary schools, which then reveals those who are asymptomatic, who would not necessarily get tested in other countries. Nonetheless, though, you know, we are running these enormously high cases, and actually Tony Blair, who's speaking once again in the Eye, ministers should set a new target of 500,000 booster shots a day to avoid a 4th lockdown and focus minds. Well, it's well short of that at the moment, isn't it, Kevin?
Oh, no, absolutely. Look, we got ahead on jabs, but now we're behind for double vaccinations, we're behind several countries. I think we're behind Spain. I think we're behind Italy. I think we're behind France. we had an advantage, and it's gone away. It's being allowed to wither, and there's big criticism of the closure of pop-up centres where they've been open. There's been pictures of empty seats. People haven't heard about jabs being available, so that system isn't working. Now, there aren't the volunteers you got last time round because people feel exhausted and somewhat used. It's got to be said. Now, the only upside of cancelling Christmas again or squeezing Christmas is the turkey and toy shortages won't be noticed as much if people aren't buying them. But it is something of a mess now, and Boris Johnson is just determined to again just put on that brave face, say everything will be well, do his boosterism act, but sometimes that can be complacency and incompetence. And we saw the report from the two committees of MPs, both chaired by Conservative former cabinet ministers, both with Conservative majorities, that people died because there wasn't action last time.
Kevin, Camilla, stay there, both of you. Lots more still to come, including Her Majesty, a royal period of rest prescribed for the Queen after the monarch's marathon series of events. More on that in just a moment. Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, Kevin Maguire and Camilla Tominey. And Camilla, certainly the security of MPs has been to the fore after Sir David Amess, Priti Patel in the Commons this evening, raising the threat level for MPs, and the pictures of Michael Gove being taunted by protesters this week too.
Yeah, I think worrying for Michael Gove after everything that's happened. And there is a generally sort of fearful atmosphere, I think, in the Commons. I've met with a few MPs this evening because there was a women's lobby event. And of course, people are reflecting on the horrific tragedy that befell Sir David, but also there were discussions about online hate, just the general attitude of the public towards MPs. I think Jess Phillips, the Labour MP for Birmingham Yardley, said at the weekend, that the public considered them lower than human. And I think if that's the case, something's gone very, very wrong with our political discourse. So to see somebody like Michael Gove sort of like almost roughed up a bit on the way to work is not something that anybody wants to see. And I suppose Priti Patel's statement tonight, although depressing, is an inevitable consequence of everything that's happened. I mean, 2 MPs to have been killed in this way in 5 years is really a pretty sorry state of affairs.
Yeah, and a strange mood around Westminster because of this and the reflections, Kevin, of MPs. I mean, and commemorating today James Brokenshire as well, who also passed away during the recess.
He did, the former Northern Ireland and security minister, another Conservative, and actually he was a sharp, incredibly likeable guy. But there have been mobs marauding around Parliament, certainly since the Brexit debate, and now it's anti-vaxxers. Some of them erected a scaffold today, which you think, what goes on in their heads when an MP was murdered the other day and they put up a scaffold? And the people Michael Gove was mobbed by, at the Times they're reporting, one of them's a former Tory councillor who was suspended from the party for a racist remark and sat as an independent but didn't attend meetings in the council Enfield for 6 months and then was booted off as a result. But as well as being Cove idiots, and they aren't just genuine Cove idiots, they're killing satire. There was a mob went into Colchester Hospital to present what they claimed were legal forms, citing Nuremberg and the Pope, among other reasons for why the pandemic was some great scam and staff couldn't hide, as they put it, behind the NHS. These people are, they ranged from the just disturbed to the really seriously dangerous threats.
Kevin, we're running out of time. I did want to show people the picture of Her Majesty the Queen in the Metro. Superwoman, I think, actually taking some rest as well. Camilla and Kevin, thank you both very much indeed. We will see you soon. Thank you.